Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how to not gain the weight back. This is a bigger issue than weight loss itself. Y'all know how to lose weight, but we as a society continually gain the weight back and then some. So if you're ready to learn, listen up and lean in as we elevate your mind.
I'm glad we're talking about this today because actually I just listened to, do you know the RP strength guy? I don't know his name, but
I've seen him.
Yes, he's jacked. He was on the Diary of a CEO podcast. I don't know. He's some English guy and he's got some pretty good people on. And,
I follow him. I think I told you about him.
Probably Stephen Bartlett.
Remember we were talking about that list that podcasts I found on Pinterest? That was one of them.
Okay. His name is Dr. Michael.
Apparently you don't listen to me when I talk.
No, I do.
Mark.
But he was talking about, he said it's an interesting statement. And I actually posted it to our group because I was like, they should listen to this. This is a good one. Of diets, what diets do is teach people how to lose weight, but not live in maintenance. And so he was saying what we're going to talk about today of how people end up gaining the weight back and then some because they didn't address the behaviors or like the eating part of it because they just
the fact that their metabolism is slower
or that they're So I was listening to that this morning and I saw we were going to talk about that today and I was like, oh, good.
Perfect. Yeah, I read a research article that we'll talk about too, which is really, really helpful.
Cool.
I am better.
I was going to say better.
Feel better, just a little bit of snot. I'm so happy I didn't get a cough, like a bad cough. Feeling so much better. I did get my friend sick. Now she has a fever and she's sick. So sorry. That's why we should stay home, Michael.
Yeah.
Michael's sick, not because of me. But let me tell you something, guys. So I decided to do like an easy 30-minute dumbbell workout on Wednesday. And I had my watch going, as I do. And I don't see my watch as like, accurate, but it at least shows me like kind of where my heart rate is at. I was like, my heart rate was in zones that it normally is when I'm lifting heavy as shit. And I was not. And I was not lifting as long. And like compared to like a 60-minute like heavies type of training versus this 30-minute dumbbell training, I burned, quote unquote, if you're not watching on YouTube, more calories because my body was so fucking tired and my recovery is slower for sure. And yeah, like today was a bit better. I did have some more agility stuff in it today. It was just like one like box jumps basically, and then everything else was dumbbells. But today was better. But that first and second, I had to lay down in between sets.
Oh my God.
When you lay down at the end of CrossFit where you're like, sweat angel, like that was me in between sets. And I was like, okay, I gotta back up. So just a friendly reminder, if you're sick like I was, ease back into it because your body's still fighting. So that was crazy. I was like, holy shit.
Does Apple Watch tell you your recovery or is it your Aura ring?
Was my body.
Well,
my body was like more accurate. I was like I'm the Tin Man. Help! And I did. What did I do? I want to say front squats, reverse lunges, dumbbell deadlifts, all dumbbells, and like something else. And my ass hurt. Like everything hurt. So I was just. And of course I didn't have much of an appetite. So there's that part too. But it was pretty hilarious. I was like, wow. Apparently I've never worked out before in my life. So,
is your appetite coming back yet or no?
Not really. I'm trying to eat normally. I'm not really like tracking right now. I don't really have like a plan. It's just kind of listening to my body and seeing how it feels. So that's where I'm at. But I can definitely see how where I normally get hungry, I'm not. So I'll eat something because it's been time between. I'm just thinking of it from like blood sugar standpoint. So I'll eat something, but I can definitely see it's still a bit slow. But how are your boobs? How's your milk developing?
The boobs are good. So for people who don't know, I'm pregnant. And one of the
Mhm.
major things that, like in my networking group, that one of the gals recommended, who's a lactation consultant, but also a speech therapist and like a swallowing therapist, is you need to do the lactation consulting before baby comes. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh, okay. I mean, if you think so, that's like, to me, like telling a person, like, if you're sick, you should probably not go to the gym. Like, okay, like,
Mhm.
sure, you're the expert in this.
Right.
So I had the gal come over today and it was very informational. Now I did like a course this week
Mhm.
on it, breastfeeding, and then she came over, and so I was like, I want you to just tell me as if I didn't do this course, and we'll go through stuff. And so she focused on like the first essentially 5 days of breastfeeding, because the first 5 days look totally different than the rest of it.
Really?
And yeah, see?
Oh, no
Because
shit.
I know. So the first five, like really, you're not like producing milk, you're producing that colostrum, and
Mm.
it's only like droplets. And
Mm.
so she talked about like just how to latch baby and what a good latch is, and like positioning a baby. There shouldn't be any pain. And then like the goal is to get you through that first 5 days. And then once baby's here is to contact her, and she's going to come back over and then be like, okay, now let's focus on like the next couple weeks and how that
Gotcha.
changes, because things change throughout pregnancy or birth and postpartum. And
Mhm.
so it was interesting because she was talking about like essentially the baby needs to eat every 2 to 3 hours. And one of the things is wake, there's, does baby tell you when it's hungry, or do you wake baby up and make them feed? And she's like, honestly, it's so hard, much harder when baby's like screaming and crying because they're hungry. So just wake
Mhm.
them up and put them on your boob. And so we talked
Oh,
about that. And then we talked about
how
like the
weird.
pump and when I would pump. And
Ah. When do you pump? Like,
so that's a good question, Christina.
thank you.
Ideally,
I was like, why
ideally,
are they like, what's a pump and dump? Like, I don't
oh
know any
yeah.
of this shit.
You want to wait. Okay, so from my understanding, you want to wait to pump because you want to establish supply and kind of have baby feed on demand because of the benefits of breastfeeding. And
Right.
she was very much like, look, if you don't want to breastfeed, like, look, we don't have to go over it. Like, we can talk about formula and like how to like bottles and all that kind of stuff. But for me and my goals, as I say, that's what we talked about. So
Mhm.
then pumping comes later. Like they recommend pushing that out like 6 to 8 weeks after a baby's been born,
Mhm.
because you want baby to establish the schedule instead of you just pumping like every 2 hours when you may not need to, because there's also a risk of like oversupply of
Mhm.
if you do that. And then she talked about pumping and like you have to clean the parts after every pump, which I was like, that sounds so fucking annoying. I know.
And it's
But
like,
yeah, like, could you I know. Like,
yeah.
well, and, like, you have to let your nipples air dry, essentially, because if you put them in, like, a cool, dark space, like, think about, like, cool, dark
They
space,
get
but right
moldy.
there. Yeah, like, they get
You get moldy
they get
nipples?
like, bacteria and, what's it
It's
called?
crazy.
I know. So you want, like, to let them dry, and then if you wanna pump, great, but also, like, there's difference between, like, pumps that you plug in, and then, like, there's ones that you can wear around that are cordless, essentially.
Yeah,
So
and
we
you just
talked
like walk
about
around
that.
with like those little bags.
Uh-huh, like the inserty things. So we talked about
So
that.
just it's
I
so
know,
strange.
it's so well, and, like, as
Oh,
we get closer and closer, I'm like, "Do I want something sucking on my nipple?" Like,
well, I will say I have this. This is not, there's no research to back this. This is solely just for my own
uh-huh.
experience and people that I know that I was not breastfed and I don't have as close a relationship with my mom. And I've asked other people this and they're like, me too. It's fine.
Well, I don't think I was no, I wasn't breastfed.
Oh, well, you guys are close.
Yeah.
Debunked.
But then because I got, I guess, colicky, but colicky is like a thing now that they can treat because it's more like a latch issue and like a feeding thing. I don't know. There's so
I don't
much.
either.
There's so
I
it's
don't either.
multiple.
Every time we talk, I'm like, oh, I get like an ick. And because
You know who
I
else
do,
gets an ick is Jenny too. Like when I talk
if
to
we
her.
don't have kids.
Yeah. She's like, yeah, fuck that. I'm like,
Yes, Jenny and I are
all
all
have,
both
like,
in our
the dream
40s.
life
With
of dinking, so I can't hate on that.
well, it's just that difference
Mhm.
of, and I'm sure a lot of women who are listening who are childless, like I don't have it. There's even talking about it. I'm like, like it's like talking about spiders. I'm like, I don't want it. Like, get it away from me. Like, it's so crazy that like there are people who feel differently than me, like a lot of them. And I'm like, that's insane that I'm just like, nope, nope, no, thank you. I'll be over here with my dog. And I love my dogs. I love them so much. I'm surprised they haven't bitten my face off. The amount of like my face in their face that I give them on a daily basis. And I love them so much. But Mark feeds them. He picks up their poop. He buys their dog food. He takes them to the vet. Sometimes I do. He gives them their medicine every night. Mark does that. You know why? You know what happened if I was left to do it? They would die. But I love the shit out of them. So that's where we're at.
Well, yeah. I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. So yeah.
Right. You don't want a dog.
Yeah, I don't want a dog. I'm like, that sounds annoying. Like
that sounds icky to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Like when they poop, like sometimes we don't watch my parents' dog anymore, but sometimes when we have it, she just like shits all over and it's like, oh God.
Yeah. Well, that's different.
I know.
My dog shits sometimes now because she's 95, but other than that, they go outside and she like, they're smart enough. Like she taps, because we don't have a doggy door for her. We have one for her sister because it was the doggy door that was here when we got here. When we moved in this house, we just never got a new one. Also because we live near a mountain, I'm always afraid like a coyote will get into the house, you know? So even though literally, unless it's fucking like Wolverine coyote jumping over this back wall that I'm looking at. Oh my God, you guys.
Jump high, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I know. I see. So it's possible. Okay. So where my office is, I have this window to my left and it's a window to my backyard.
Yes.
And I'm talking to my client, Kelsey, and I go, oh my God. And I look, there's this black bit, like big smoke billowing. What is it? Billowing? Is that the word?
Sure.
Big smoke, big smoke cloud.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh my God, I think my neighbor's house is on fire. And like, you know, smoke, you don't know how like close it is. So we're actually finishing up the call.
Billowing is the right word. Smoke. It's air and swelling outward.
See, my vocabulary is working.
It's expanding.
Vocabulary app.
And coyotes can jump about 6 to 8 feet. Okay. Continue.
Okay. Well, I think that's probably 8 feet. So thank you. See, that's why we can't have a doggy door. So anyways, so I'm like, Mark, there's a fire. There's like a fire out there. So we walk and it's actually like 4 blocks down, like on Dunlap, basically across Dunlap.
No.
It was, have you ever seen a house fire? Like a full blown house fire?
I haven't seen a house fire full blown, but I've seen some fire. Yeah.
Dude, like
it's wild.
I was wild.
Yeah.
2 p.m., 106 degrees. These wonderful humans called fire department, hot ass women and women.
Oh, good.
It's like a 3-alarm fire or whatever. Like there's so many. There's all these trucks around it because the way that this neighborhood is set up, like things are built on a mountain, so there's like people on top of each other, right? Slopey, sunny slope. So that's the name of my neighborhood, guys. So it was, I mean, you could see the flames coming up and like these guys put that shit out quick. I was like, oh, this is going to get out of control. I'm like, Mark, stand back. What if something blows up? Like we're such nosy neighbors. Also, want to give some love to our clients where there are forest fires.
Yes.
And our listeners, our own coach, you don't know this, Liz, they had to rescue her in-laws. They lost their home.
Oh no!
So sending them love. She also had to rescue her horse.
Oh no!
Which she did. Yeah. And then I know a lot of our clients in California, she's in Reno, are dealing with that. So I know I'm making fun of this house fire situation, but I can't even imagine like that being your reality. So
Holy
I know. I mean, I always worry about this mountain, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not far, baby. 3
Hot
doors
and dry.
down.
Hot and dry.
Hot
Perfect
and
conditions.
dry. So I was sick, right? And so I took off Monday and Tuesday, other than the 2 episodes that you guys heard me try to get through. I listened to them. I was like, okay, that's not that bad.
No.
Yeah. So I binge watched
What?
Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
Oh. Michael, so that like came up on a preview or something. I can't even say what he says because I was like, how do you know about this? He's like, they were like on TikTok. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. He gets everything from TikTok.
Yes, they
Michael
have a
even
huge
knows about them.
following.
Yes,
Yeah,
he's like,
huge
and of course,
following.
they all found out they were all having sex with each other. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, not the girls on the show, but one of the girls on the show with a couple other people in that like neighborhood. It's so interesting to me though, because I was always under the impression that like that religion, you weren't allowed to show your shoulders, like you weren't allowed to like show like be any sort of sexual. And then I watched their little dances and I'm like, this looks like something I would do. And I am not Mormon. So it's a good show. I very much enjoy it. Yeah. I mean, you know me. I like some trashy shit. I like trash.
You know, it's funny. This is for the audience listening. Let's talk about the like epitome of Christina versus Amanda. Is Christina likes the Mormon Wives trashy TV show, and I was excited to watch the debate this week.
I did not watch the debate. I instead listened to my podcasts, my 3 political podcasts that I listened to let them tell me how the debate went. Meghan McCain, Pod Save America, and American's Dream or something like that. American Fever Dream. Yes. It's so yeah, we are very different. But let me tell you about those 3 different podcasts. So we have Meghan McCain, which is a Republican. Okay. Yeah. This is how well-rounded I am. American Fever Dream is she's trans, she's queer, excuse me. So LGBT. And then Pod Save America are 3 dudes.
But they're really liberal. I think because they work for Obama.
They've worked for a lot of different people. I believe also Republicans. So
really?
They're not super liberal. They're hilarious. So what did you think about the debate, Amanda?
Oh my God. I thought it was not good. And I think it was not good. I think overall it was not good because I did not learn anything that I didn't get a clear grasp on how one of these 2 people is going to help our country. In
either person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Like other than like, of course, going into the abortion debate, like, of course, Democrats are more pro that or pro-choice, we'll say, whereas Republicans, some are not. But actually, like 80% of the country supports pro-choice. So there's that.
Which is crazy that the Supreme Court of 13 people, or how many is 11 now?
9.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was it 11 before and then they choked? Is it always 9?
Yeah, they're trying to
make it more
to pack the court, quote unquote.
Got it.
Justices, yeah.
So here's what Mark was saying. He was like, "Why? There's 2 that are supposed to be retiring soon. Like, why wouldn't they retire now? Idiots."
Well, that was the whole Ruth Gator Ginsburg or whatever her name is issue. RGB, whatever. Because she could have retired with Obama, she didn't. And then she ended up passing away, so that gave up her seat when Trump was in office. So
yeah, I just, if we're talking about mental wellness, as we do on this podcast, some of the things that I heard were a bit not all there. That's how I'll say it.
That's actually a great statement. Because even I was like, wait, what was the original question? like I would text my mom and be like, I forgot what they just asked because what happened?
I will say it gives me all the like gooey feel. Oh, I got to tell you guys an update. A gooey feels because I love a woman who is more intelligent than the man she's talking to. Yeah. And like doesn't even have to say much and just can say, and that's how I fight or argue. Like, I'm going to say a few words to you and you're going to be like, no. I'm like, see who's out of control here. I love it. Speaking of that, I didn't tell you this. When we went to bingo, the bartender from the Rum Runner was there. She's like, I know you. And I was like, I know you. I've never met this girl before.
Because like when you went and you got in your.
Yes. Okay. Well, no, but okay. So I've only met, we don't go there often anymore. Cause like, number one, we barely go out anymore.
Yeah.
Sad. And we don't go there, but we happened to go there because my cousin was in town, and then we found out about the karaoke thing. So then we went back the next weekend because we love the karaoke guy. I love karaoke. If you guys don't know, I used to host karaoke. Did you know that?
No. And I would rather die than host karaoke.
Oh, it was so fun. It was so fun. I love karaoke. I love karaoke. I loved hosting it. That's why I'm so great on a microphone, right?
Yeah.
So she's like, I know you. I was like, oh yeah, you're the bartender, the rum runner. And she goes, and I told her what happened. And she goes, yeah, I heard that there was like a whole mix up or whatever. So I told her about that dude. She goes, oh, is it Alfredo? Is the guy that was on the music? She goes, literally, I won't walk into that bar. I'll go on Touch Tunes first and look up if he has his songs in. So I won't show up. Also, they're straight. That motherfucker lied to me, and he doesn't know I know all of this. They're straight. The one guy's married. That other guy just comes in and reads a stupid book. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like, just made up this whole story to, like, be it. That makes me even, like, be like, God, you have major issues. Now we're making up stories about cats, people eating cats. Just kidding. I got that like vibe of this dude. I'm like, you're just going to say anything to try to make me feel bad, and you're going to lie. And so at least that was honest. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was. I was like, oh yeah, I'm ready.
Are you going to Rum Runner this weekend?
No. Mark and I are going to watch the Texas State. We're going to go ride our bikes tomorrow because it's under 100 degrees here.
Is it?
Yay. Whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop. It's even 88 next week. Like, stop it. I was walking. Did you walk this morning? It was so nice and cool, you guys. Like, I can't.
I think my walking days are getting far between at this point right now. It's just
you're waddling. 99 tomorrow. So when I say 100, under 100, it's 1 degree.
Yeah, but still.
But then it goes to 92, 93, 88, 89, 87, 86.
And
Let's fucking go.
On the 23rd week.
No, it doesn't.
For weatherchannel.com.
I have I have the one from my phone.
It could change.
Yeah. Well, I'll be in New York next weekend. So
really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
good to see Howie, baby.
Oh, fun.
Yep. Yeah. I'm going to have a Howie. Yeah. We're going to go see we're going to go see Diplo at this amazing venue that we went and saw Zed at. It's one of the coolest places. I think I'm going to start my own Instagram separate from the business. So I can I just need to do it. Yeah. And if you guys are wondering why I've unfollowed you, it's because I'm realizing that I follow all these people that have nothing to do with my business that are affecting I think it's affecting my thing, like my algorithm.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you guys are Instagram people, let me know, because Ira thinks that she goes, everyone that you're like, look at this page, they follow like 800 people. You follow like 4,200. And I'm like, well, I just follow people back. Or, I follow like reality people, but that should be on my own page, not the business page. So yeah. Anyways, we've talked for 26 minutes about our lives. About absolutely nothing. I know you guys love it. So this was a request by a follower on Instagram, how not to gain the weight back. This is by far the reason why we have an obesity epidemic. It's not weight loss. It is gaining it back, which ultimately exposes patterns of lack of education, both around yourself and awareness of the things you do, lack of education around metabolism, eating, behaviors, sustainability. And so we thought, hey, let's chat about it.
Yep.
I want to explain that the methods that we're going to talk about today don't just happen the first time you try them. I've seen many people in my own care, while I am supporting them, gain some pounds back, and then we figure out their blind spots. And then they might lose it, average out, gain a little bit back, and then not as much this time, bring it back. And we're just kind of over time understanding and figuring out their quirks and kinks. And this might cause them to do a little bit of this yo-yoing, but not as massively as they normally would and within control. So it's not an overnight thing. But in a meta-analysis that was 29 long-term weight loss studies at this meta-analysis. So meta-analysis is like looking at multiple studies. More than half of the lost weight was regained within 2 years. And by 5 years, more than 80% of lost weight in 29 different research studies was gained back after 5 years. That's nuts. 80%.
Well, and you see, not only did they gain it back, but most of the time they regain and then some too.
Correct.
So that's the disappointing part, because I think people go into the diet, they get the weight loss, they're like, great. And then they go back to what we're going to talk about today. And then they start to regain the weight. Maybe they don't notice it, because that tends to be like not noticing. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh shit. And then they are then having additional calories over what has changed of their maintenance. So now they're in the surplus.
Right.
And then they gain a little bit more weight. So then they feel even more defeated, because I'm going to say this unpleasantly, but to the point of they feel even like fatter, right? Like even worse about themselves, because not only did they fail at like the initial weight loss goal, but then they even gained weight that was like they'd never wanted in the first place.
Yeah. I think of a client that we just had her 3-month discussion. So for those listening, we don't sign clients up for a year right away, sometimes never, because I truly believe I want to know the client first. I want to know the ins and outs. And then after a 3-month period, we create like a timeline. And for her, she has about 50 pounds to lose. And I laid out a plan that included diet breaks, 3 diet breaks, to get to that 50-pound weight loss, and then included her reverse to maintenance. And I told her, this is going to take you at least the next year for all of that, right? And this was all based on how her body's losing weight now. And she said, it's interesting. When her husband and her were talking, she goes, this is the first time that someone's just not like, okay, great, you lost the weight, see you later.
Yeah.
Like,
it's interesting, because I had a conversation similar to that this week with one of my girls. Because we're not entering a weight loss phase yet, but we're getting ready to. So she's having to meet certain things in order to do that, and consistency and whatnot. And so I said, tell me, what's your goal? Like ideally? And she's like, 60 pounds. I said, okay, so realistically, like if you're losing a pound per week, that's 60 weeks. And she laughed and she's like, oh my God, when you put it like that, like, and that doesn't mean like a pound per week, therefore 60 weeks, but I'm saying in general, you at least have a bare minimum of 60 weeks of weight loss somewhere throughout your life to get the 60 pounds. Now, and that's going to fluctuate and change. And we might be happy at 30 pounds of weight loss, right? And like our body composition there. But she was like, I never thought of it like that. I'm like, well, yeah, like
works.
When you have a goal, like when you just throw out a blatant number, it's not, okay, 60 pounds will get you there. It's okay, it's 60 pounds. This is how long it would take. Now let's work backwards and see what that really looks like.
Right. And like I said, I even included like diet breaks. So now I've got 3 added weeks onto that. So I'm 63 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So again, it is very defeating. I know personally, I have struggled with the yo-yo myself, where I'd get super lean and I'd be around, the leanest I've been in as long as I can remember is 139, which people are just like, what? 139? Like, that's what I weigh now. And I hate my body. Well, I did not hate my body. I looked fucking insane, but also very, very thin, lacking a lot of like shape. 142, 145, 148. Those are like these numbers that I've where I've seen my body get super lean. So body fat percentage down, feel good. But then I've been up to 160, right? And I'm tired of that. I know that it's not good for me, especially as I age, because the more that I yo-yo, the harder it is each time I go to lose the weight again.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think this is something a lot of people can relate to. I personally can relate to it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks. It sucks to be, especially when you get super lean.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I can't see my abs anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone in this industry, it feels very like you're a failure. Like, why are you here? You can't maintain it. When really, and right, what's the point? Like, everyone's laughing at you, or they think you're fat now.
Mm-hmm.
And really what it was is that to get to that leanest place was very unsustainable. And I wasn't recognizing like my patterns of like restriction and how I got there that were the problem. Right. And so I've learned that now. So, why do we gain the weight back? So we've kind of touched on these thus far, but one of the major ones I want you to talk about is we didn't recognize the behaviors that led to the gain in the first place.
Right.
What would you say about that?
Well, I would say, thank you for asking. The behaviors. So, and when we talk about this is like, do we tend to binge eat at night? Are we emotionally eating? Do we, kind of have your licks, bites, and tastes? What do you call that?
Bites, licks, tastes,
yeah,
BLTs.
Yes. So are we having those throughout the day? Are we like stressed and then we just don't eat, right? Because we've seen that too. And that's not necessarily a good thing either. Because I'll see like clients were like, oh, I'm so stressed, so I didn't eat. But at least I stayed under calories. It's like, that's not good. So again, thinking of where are the emotions and what are my behaviors that stem from the emotions? Right. Because if we don't know how to identify that, so if we don't know that I feel frustrated, and when I feel frustrated, I tend to like overeat bags of chips because that's something I can control when I feel out of control, then that's going to happen every time you're still frustrated.
Right.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like my post that y'all see on my Instagram. That won't be today. It'll be last Friday from whenever this is posted. It says like, you can't make a change until you know what you need to change in the first place, or something like that. And I think of these clients who have come back to me and, have gained the weight back. And that to me is a strong indicator of, okay, we maybe had a false confidence that we could do it on our own. Right. And as a coach, like you want to, sometimes when people say, oh, I think I could do it, I'm like, okay, well, what will you do here? What will you do here? How will you do it here? And when someone's set in their ways, sometimes you kind of just have to let them fail. Right. And it sucks because then you're the person who's like, okay, like, but I still see some blind spots here. I think that this isn't a good idea, but you also want to encourage them to be autonomous and, interdependent.
I feel so seen with that statement right there. Like, so heard so well as a coach.
Yes.
Because I was telling Michael the other day, because I forget what I was talking about. I was like, instead of asking, I always ask clients, where do you think you're at? What do you want to do? What do you think? Because I already have my opinion, but maybe there's something that I can add from what they say, or like maybe there's a different way I didn't look at it. But what I really would encourage people to do who are on the other side of the coach, who are receiving coaching, and not necessarily just from us, but from their coach in general, when they're feeling ready to graduate or move on, is to say, what do you think? And if you have a trusting relationship with that coach and you believe and they've helped you tremendously, they're going to be honest. And they're not going to, like you said, I don't sign people up for a year, because we need to see what the hell is going on first. And maybe you don't need to work with us for a year. Maybe we only need 2 more months, and we're going to tell you that. But that's why it's important to work with somebody that's going to be honest like we are, but also put it back in their court. Because it's not like you go to the doctor and you're like, okay, I think I need like this. And hopefully your doctor's like, I think we need to take care of your heart condition first. Right. You're like, no, I'm pretty sure I just need the boob job. It's like, okay. Yeah. So I just want to emphasize that enough of hey, there's probably a lot more to this. And if we're continuously pointing out like there's some behavioral stuff that's repeating and repeating, and you're thinking like, I think I'm good to go, we can bring that up. But at some point, you want the autonomy. I'm not going to try and convince you and hold you back.
Right. Well, and when you are gaining the weight back, we have to look at, like you said, why.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing is some people were like, okay, well, I found myself emotionally eating, or maybe it's not even emotional. Maybe it's just passes you continually gave yourself to go eat, Mexican food every weekend and, have indulgences more than you normally would. Your balance was off. You turn that nutrition knob off, right? And you just kind of were like, I have this confidence. I learned these things. And you have, again, I say the word 70 times on this podcast, that false confidence that you can just kind of dabble in your nutrition when you've been focusing on it maybe for a year, right?
Yeah.
And you're not tracking and you're not figuring out like what your weight's doing. Even when I left Jenny, our coach, she said, just make sure you just, continue to weigh yourself and do progress photos, which I know if you're going to eat more intuitively, that way you have kind of a gauge, like if things are going great, if they're not, you have a gauge if you need to like pull back or come back to tracking or whatever that is. But I've been thinking about this since we started this conversation of like, then when that person comes back to me and they're like, okay, I'm ready to go into this deficit because I've, gained all this weight back.
Yep.
I immediately am like, well, is that the best decision right now to go into a deficit? If you've gained all this weight back, you didn't wake up one morning and it was just there.
Mm-hmm.
There were things that you did or did not do that caused that to happen. So let's look at that first. And for some clients, especially if they have a long-term relationship with you, they may think they may want to bypass that, or they try to bypass that. And as much as I'm like, okay, like we can go into a cut, but if that shit's still not resolved, we're spinning our wheels.
Yeah. I have two things. One on that point is I've had an interaction where they felt like, well, I'm doing everything right. Then I'm doing everything right. So therefore this should be the result, or this should be the path. And it was kind of like,
can you explain that a little more?
Yeah. So they were tracking consistently, hitting good protein, doing their workouts, filling out our assignments, showing up for the calls. They were checking all the boxes that we would say on paper. Mm-hmm. But then when it came to some of the behavioral mindset stuff, those things were still persisting. But I couldn't objectively track that, unless I had like on September 13th, she said XYZ. On September 16th, she said this. Right. And it was like, to me, I'm like, I understand that you feel you're ready to go into a cut. But when I have a conversation with you, there's a different discussion that's being had that doesn't even have anything to do with the calories and the training part of this. Mm-hmm. And that discussion that we're having, the behaviors and the mindset piece, are going to play a larger role in your expectations and long-term outcome than you being able to track calories and work out.
Absolutely. And there is that missed confidence of you have this confidence in maybe tracking food and being in a deficit and doing the exercise, but where you're lacking the confidence is recognizing when your emotions are getting too high, where your threshold to not reach for food is lowering, right? Like your boundary is coming down. Your confidence there, that's where we need to start. We need to build that confidence, because anyone can fucking diet, as we've said. These people lost all the weight.
Most people have dieted.
But what they aren't learning is, what does it feel like when I get into that mentality of I want to reach for the food or eat the pizza? Like, what does that feel like in my body? What are the triggers to that? And now some of the people in our program haven't actually, like, especially my early on clients, haven't gone through the entire method because they came over from a different program with me, or I've known them from F45 or whatever. And so for them, like, unless they want to go through the method, then they can, right? And we can work on a lot of these things. But you know, for those folks, because I love them so much and they've helped build this program, you know, we're kind of doing the work as we go. And this just shows you guys why that's not always the best way to do it. But if someone came back and they're like, I maintained the weight, but I still wasn't where I wanted to be, so I'm coming back to like finish the process, I'd be like, great job, right? But again, when I'm seeing your weight increase, then we're missing awareness, right? We're missing awareness around our emotions, around our thoughts about ourselves, around our reactiveness to certain triggers. And so that is a big reason why people gain weight. And that is, you know, obviously one of the areas we'll talk about strengthening.
Yeah. And I think going into this, what I hear from you and your perspective of the client is that now they feel out of control with their stuff, right? So their automatic reaction and their history in the past is to, now how do I gain control and make this so controlled of an environment that I do successfully lose this weight that I've gained now? Or how do I make this restrictive and really narrow it down because I've been too off the rails? Because they're not identifying the off the rails or like the behaviors as behaviors of a reason. They're just like, ugh, I just did it. Like, and so what worked for me in the past was to go in a controlled method. And so now I'm coming to you, control this that's happening because I didn't really think about what was actually happening as it was going on.
No, I agree. It's like, you can, you know, if I put someone in a lockup and or I think of Big Brother, I was just talking about this last night. So they're like in this setting, they can't leave. I mean, they can, but you know what I mean? Like the point is not to. Yeah. And how there's only so many dudes in the house right now. And one of them is kind of nerdy. And he's kind of got this weird quirky personality. And one of the girls is like a bottle service girl. And like, she's starting to like him. Okay. So in this controlled environment, she is now attracting herself to him and he's attracted to her and so on. Would that happen in the real world? Probably not. Right. And so you're exactly right. Like they think that control is this controlled environment of coaching, which it is. I mean, in a lot of coaching programs, that's exactly what they're doing.
Yes.
They're saying, see, you need me. I'm controlling it for you.
Well, think of like any of the major diets, right? Like they're controlling what you can and can't eat by rule.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When what we want to teach them is the control over understanding their internal selves and figuring out how to make choices with their diet and exercise, even when life gets lifey, right? And being able to regulate themselves so that we don't need something that's falsely regulating us, which is, in this case, food or alcohol. The other part is more physiological. When you lose weight, your resting metabolism goes down.
Explain what resting metabolism is real quick.
The amount of energy you need to survive without movement. So organs, your brain, your blood, all of that, all of the functions in your body require energy. They require a lot of energy. And the bigger you are, or the more muscle you have, so the larger your body or the more lean body mass you have, the higher that resting metabolism will be. So if I am, and I wrote this down, for example, if there's a woman who's 240 pounds, currently at 240 pounds, she would eat around 2,700 to 2,800 calories to maintain her physique. Okay. Now, if that same woman loses 50 pounds and now weighs 190 pounds, her resting metabolism or her total daily energy expenditure is now between 2,400 and 2,500. Okay. So at 240, she could eat between 27 and 28. At 190, she can eat between 24 and 25. However, what people think is true for them is that maintenance is still that 27, 2,800. And they begin to eat in a way that reflects that, not making up for the fact that they're in a smaller body and that their maintenance or their total daily energy expenditure has changed. And so they tend to gain the weight back and then some, because, you know, your body itself is, if you eat in that 27, 2,800, now I'm actually in a surplus. And now I'm using big numbers, but like if you think of 2,000 versus 2,400, like that's a big difference of food. That's like a whole meal.
Put it this way, to gain 1 pound per week, you essentially have a caloric surplus of 500 calories per day.
Yeah.
And so she essentially, if she would go back to that, could possibly be doing that and then just regain 1 pound per week on average.
Right. Or it sneaks up, right? Because a lot of people too, like behaviorally, like you said, they don't necessarily see the small sneak up in weights. Because even if you ate 250 calories over your maintenance, which this person would every single day, that's half a pound of weight loss per week, or weight gain per week. And say that we're now, 12 weeks out from our diet, or we'll say 16 weeks out from our diet, that's an additional, 8 pounds that we put on the scale in just 4 months? And we don't realize it. Now, 8 pounds is not a huge, spike in weight, but that's the math I could do.
That's as far as we've gotten.
That's as far as we're going to go with that.
Yeah.
But we have to remember that the way we ate. So I think there's this misconception. I know there's a misconception. Like I'll lose the weight and then I'll go back to the way I ate before. But
or like
physiologically,
then I'll figure it out. And it's like, oh boy.
Yeah. But physiologically, you cannot eat the way you did before unless you're ready to gain the weight back.
Right.
So don't do that. Here's another little punch in the face for y'all. When you lose weight, your body reacts in ways that makes it harder to lose weight again. So there's a few things I want to add here is that when we lose weight, so our resting metabolism comes down, but also, for every, I have in my notes, so for every kilogram, so 2.2 pounds you shed, your body starts burning 20 to 30 fewer calories each day. This happens again because we're in a smaller body. Secondly, your appetite increases, making you feel hungrier than before. Specifically, you might feel like eating about 100 calories more each day compared to when you lost weight before. So now we're even hungrier, right? And so and that doesn't happen right away. Let's think about it like long-term deficit. This is why diet breaks. This is why plans to like get your ass out of that cut and reverse to maintenance and like having your cuts be shorter periods of time throughout the year or 2 years, whatever the plan is so important. Because when I do that and I bring you back to maintenance, even if it's for a week, 2 weeks, the body is going to readjust and we can decrease the likelihood of a lot of these things if we do it in the right way.
And when you're talking, I just want to like kind of emphasize when we're talking about a difference, I don't want to necessarily use this 2,700 or 2,400, but let's do it. So it's difference of 300 calories. Sometimes that's as easy as like oil or like how much sour cream we're putting on something or butter. Like when like 300 calories for a weight loss can be a lot, but 300 calories for maintaining is not that much, if that makes sense. Because at some, like you kind of realize again, if we've worked on the behaviors and patterns that, oh, maybe for example, if you go to Outback right now and you order a baked potato with butter, you're going to get a shit ton of butter on that baked potato. And there's maybe your 300 additional calories, just for example.
Just in the butter.
Yeah, just in the butter. When really you don't need that much butter on a baked potato. I'm sorry, but you don't, right? You can have a lot, but this is where it's being aware comes in. And then knowing how to order when we're dining out. And then also knowing how to fluctuate my calories depending on the day or the week plays a role.
Right.
So I just want to add that in because we're talking about you've got to eat less, because your body's making less, but it's like, we're not really saying like now fast. So that way you skip the whole meal. It's literally like, maybe let's just not have as much of XYZ, and it's usually a small sustainable change.
Yeah. Well, this goes into the next thing. Like people are like, well, then I just eat at this maintenance that's lower for the rest of my life. No. In your maintenance and surplus, if you're doing the correct type of working out and focusing on protein, as I mentioned, if you can gain some lean body mass, your resting metabolism goes up. Therefore, your total daily energy expenditure goes up and your maintenance goes up.
Correct.
But say that when we were in our deficit, we didn't focus on strength training, right?
Yep.
And we just lost weight. A good percentage of that can be muscle, especially when you're seeing weight loss at a rapid rate. And, with Ozempic, for example, I've had people tell me that when they didn't strength train and they didn't give a shit about what they ate, they just wanted to lose weight. They're like, I'm fluffy and I'm like saggy and I'm just a bag of skin. And they're like, I have no shape because I lost a ton of muscle. When we lose muscle, so just like I explained, when we lose muscle, guess what happens? Our resting metabolism goes down. So that's really important because if we're not strength training and focusing on protein, then here's where it gets fucking tricky. Say that my maintenance, where my body fat was prior to losing the weight because my muscle was higher, was 2,000. And, I've lost this weight and maybe I did equate for the difference and it's 1,800, but I didn't realize that actually my body fat is higher now and my muscle is lower. So actually that brings my maintenance down even more. And I'm like, fuck, like I'm eating at this maintenance that I should be eating at, but I just keep gaining weight on it. It's like, well, you've really fucked your body by not prioritizing strength training and not prioritizing protein.
Right. And strength training, when we say that, it could literally be body weight at home. It doesn't have to be with a barbell lifting heavy with a belt and all that shit. It could literally just be focusing on progressing at home too.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, and you talk about that, like people who, when they are in the weight loss phase, I'll let you touch on this, that do too much when it comes to exercise. And then once they get to that place, they like completely pull back.
That's what, because you'll see that a lot too, of like where it's, and I see it more so in the Facebook group because most of the clients that come to us, they've probably already done that part. Or they just think like, I just have to exercise this much. Like there isn't really like a weight loss component to it. So what people will
plan to it.
Yeah. What people will do is they'll decide I want to lose weight by eating less, but I'm also going to add in exercise. And what they'll do is tend to not find an exercise routine that'll work for them past the weight loss phase because we're not thinking past the weight loss phase, which is a common thing. And so we're using exercise as an additional way to burn calories. So let's say we'll go back to 2,000 calories for you. Maybe I'm eating about 1,500 if I even know this, right? Because that's going to be another thing. And if I'm tracking accurately. But then I'm using exercise as a way to maybe burn an additional 200 calories. And so I'm actually thinking I'm eating at 1,300 because my Fitness Pal is adding in my caloric burn and saying, okay, you actually earned this back. So now I'm actually not eating at 1,300. I'm probably actually eating at 1,700 because I'm taking away the 200 that I burned from exercise when that doesn't work. That's not how your body works.
Right.
So they're doing something, they're overtraining per se or over exercising as a way to burn off the calories, but not doing something that's sustainable. So then once we say, oh gosh, I got the weight loss, great. I don't have to go for these runs anymore that I don't like to do anyway. And then they stop. Well, your body was using some of that for energy. Okay. So now we're back in a surplus a bit. Then
let's explain that though. I think it's important to explain how we calculate total daily energy expenditure because we're missing that.
Yeah.
So like you guys have to realize like when we set that 1,700 calorie deficit. So say your maintenance is 22, we set you at 17. These are hard. Like this is not how, just hypothetical. And we set you at 17. When we set you at 17, we're taking into account where your current activity level is.
Correct.
Because you have your basal metabolic rate based on your age, height, and weight. And it's still a guesstimate, but we'll get close to that. And then we have a multiplier for your activity level. So we have sedentary, light active, moderately active, active, very active. And so then we multiply your basal metabolic rate, your resting metabolism, by that multiplier to get your total daily energy expenditure. And for us, we're also going to kind of push it up to see how high we can go, because oftentimes these are just like macro calculators. So we're going to also work with your body to see how high we can go. Meaning, say that the calculator says 2200, we might try 2250, 2300, 2350. If you're not gaining weight, the higher we can get you, great. However, the problem though is that, like Amanda's saying, if you remove that exercise, the difference in calorie intake from someone who's moderately active, working out 4 to 6 days a week, to sedentary is a lot of calories. So you are completely changing the algorithm of your body.
Yeah.
And that's why you're getting the weight back.
Yes. So that's why, because we'll get questions in the Facebook group about like macro calculators. Is this the right one for me? And usually my response is, it's a good start, right? But people, what is it? People tend to what's it called?
Overestimate how much they burn and underestimate how much they actually eat.
So yeah, I mean, it could be accurate, but for example, when I look up I just pulled up a macro calculator. I say I work out 4 to 6 hours of exercise per week. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, maintain the same weight. It has me at 1900 calories essentially. But my maintenance is actually about 2200 to 2300.
Right.
So it could be that far off. But if I'm using this 1900, as my maintenance, because I don't know, because I haven't tracked. And then I'm saying also, if I work out a ton, 10 more hours per week, it's putting my calories at 2450. It changes that much just based on your activity.
500 calories.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a huge one, you guys. If you're changing your activity levels, you have to change your calorie intake.
Right.
That's just how it is. And it's not going to, for some people, it won't be that big of a difference, but you figure out what that is.
Well, and it's not to say like if you're working out 3 times a week and then you go to 4 that we need to change it either. We could also, again, listen to our body and see what it tells us. And if we start getting hungrier, then we can add some. If you're starting to feel more full at meals because you went from 3 to 2 days, then we can just dial back a bit.
Right. So simple. So we have an episode on this, but I just want to hit on like what you should develop before you go into a weight loss phase in an effort to reduce the gaining it back. So the first thing is figure out what is sustainable for you, right? We have most of our clients walk in doing their maximum, and we very quickly teach them their minimums. What we're going to have people do is figure out like what is the minimum amount of exercise and steps that we can do, so that if we need to, we can bump you up and add a workout, right? And so that is more sustainable, because if I know that 2 to 3 workouts, I see great results and I can maintain that over time, then great. And then maybe down the line, if I want to like tighten up, or I've got a vacation coming, maybe I add another one in. But what this is going to do is keep you from what you just said of like, I run 6-7 days a week and now I'm fucking tired because I'm burnt out, and then I don't do anything. This will keep you consistent. What else?
So thinking, and we touched on this before, is what is my actual weight loss goal? And I think you brought up a good point with your client, is saying, okay, she's got a year with 3 diet breaks. And so really being honest about long-term, how long you can commit to a weight loss phase. So meaning if you're like, man, I can tough it out for like 4 weeks, but on that 5th week, I tend to go off the rails. Then that's when we would say, let's do 4 weeks on, 1 week off. Yes, that's going to push out the time frame, or even make the option for weight loss amount less. But if that's what keeps you consistent, then that's what's the win.
So here's what people are thinking right now. But what if I can just do it sooner and, grind it out at 1,200 calories for 3 months, right? Like that's what people think. They think, I'll just, if that's going to extend it, then why not just grind for 3 months? Let me tell you why. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't sustain that.
But you did that before. And how'd it go? And then you felt really guilty when you went out to dinner with your friends and then had the cake and then you overly restricted and then you beat yourself up and then you probably went to the gym to burn it off. And then here you are again.
And then you burnt out and you binged.
Instead of your 12 weeks, it became 4 months, which is 16 weeks. And then you said, oh, it's summer. Like, I'm just going to YOLO.
Yeah, exactly. You can't do that. Like, I can probably, maybe not even now because I don't give a shit. But when I did give a shit, I could probably completely get hyper focused at like 1350 for 3 months.
That just sounds so miserable.
It's fucking miserable.
Yeah.
But do I want to do that? Is it healthy? No. And what did I say in the beginning? I gained that shit back because 1350 literally is not enough to sustain a child.
Right.
So don't try to flip the script here, what we're saying. We're teaching you what's sustainable, what you can do consistently, because what you're doing, the opposite, when you're trying to grind and push through and get as much weight loss as you can, we know doesn't work because you ask the question, why you keep gaining it back.
Right.
So, yes.
Well, and that's you not understanding what a positive relationship or even neutral, we'll say neutral relationship is with food and exercise.
Yes.
Because now you're using both of those as a means to the end for the weight loss.
Yep.
And so that's where you get in your pickle because I got to the end, hypothetically, and then what do I do? And then we go back to our old behaviors because now I've met the end, right? There's not a sustainability. There's not a sustainability component that I worked on. So, and then you still have this fucked up relationship with exercise and food because it's only used when you don't like how you look and how you feel.
Right. Exactly. It goes into the common thinking patterns that a lot of people struggle with, right? So these are the things we also want to understand. Are we someone who goes really hard for a short amount of time? And then like we just talked about, if we have the cake and we think, oh, see, we can't do it perfectly, or see, you failed and you do nothing for the weekend and you do that every weekend, that's a problem. Yep. That's going to gain the weight back real quick. Even like that one makes me cringe because people think, but I've been eating so good 4 days a week, as if 4 days is somehow more powerful than the 3 days you ate almost twice the amount you did in the 4 days, right? So it's like, that's not how it works. Your perfectionism, your overachievement, those types of identities that we as a program teach people about, because those underlying struggles of I'm only good if I can achieve this. I'm only good if people see me as skinny. I'm only good if I can do it perfectly. If I can't do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it at all. So now we're procrastinating. Like those things, if you don't get a hold of them, none of this fucking matters. I say that probably once a month.
Well, even with that, if we don't continuously like develop and work on and improve, because not that this ever gets perfect, but like our stress and emotional management too. So these type of personalities that you're talking about, this all or nothing, this perfectionism, usually they're pushed by the grind, or maybe the lackluster all or nothing emotional management, like we talked about with the binge eating, not managing our emotions. That's going to impact it too. And so again, we need to have learned the fluctuations. And again, going back to our seasons episode, talk about the fluctuations of life and adjusting to that too. So recognizing that, okay, so we're in September now, maybe entering in a cut in November is not the best option because of the holidays, and just learning how to fluctuate life a bit so we can still maybe build up our training schedule that is consistent. So that way, when January and the holidays are over, come along, we're ready for the nutrition part of it where we go into the weight loss. But also realizing that when you are stressed, that's going to have an impact on your body. And then constantly going into a weight loss phase exacerbates that as well. So if we don't know how to relax and turn down and meditate essentially, or going into that state, that's going to keep spinning your wheels.
Right. I'm going to take that a step further. If you don't know what's going on in your body at all,
like
you shouldn't be in a weight loss phase. Just, it doesn't even have to be dissociation. If I'm a people pleaser and my focus is on everyone else, what am I not focusing on? Me. Every time I say yes to someone else, I'm saying no to myself.
Right.
And so I may not know what it feels like to be angry, to be sad, to be lonely. I may not know what it feels like to be hungry. I may not know what it feels like to feel stressed out. And so if you don't have a wonderful communication, a dialogue with yourself, you should not be going into a weight loss phase.
Right.
Because you lack so much knowledge and data that when you have it, it makes that so much easier. Even sometimes you say, yeah, I'm not ready for this right now,
Right.
but you, for your whole life, have probably told your body what it should be doing rather than listening to what it actually needs.
Yep.
So I'll just take that a step further.
Yep.
All right. Anything else on that?
The other thing is, I think if we are going to, because you can do a weight loss phase without exercise technically.
Yep.
But if you are going to incorporate exercise, or if you already do, make sure it's something you like instead of beating up your body. Like, just because rowing burns the most calories per minute, it doesn't mean you have to enjoy it and suck it up for like 60 minutes a day. And so like, we obviously promote strength training a lot, and we both enjoy it. But if you don't, then find what you enjoy and make that sustainable. So I did want to add that in of just, because that's what's going to keep you going too.
Well, you bring up something hilarious, because I was looking through some videos, or I'm working on a new workshop, a free workshop, guys. So stay tuned. And I was looking through pictures of me in the past, and I was trying to find some of them like right before I started F45. And I was watching, because I have some old videos that they would like film of me at F45. And I was like, that looks so fun. I was like, I should do a challenge of like what my body looks like strength training, what it looks like at F45, what it looks like from Pilates, what it looks like. I mean, it'll take me like 2 years to do, but I was thinking about that because I'm like, that looks so fun. I want to battle rope, but then no, I don't. I don't want to do that. I remember moments being like, I don't want to run.
You know what's funny is sprint. Sidebar, because I like am in the gym and I'm like looking around at my equipment. I'm like, I could get rid of some of this. Like, you know how you just collect stuff because you need at one point in time. And so I have parallettes. Like the PVC pipes that where you do parallel pass-throughs in CrossFit. And I'm like, why the fuck do I have these? Like, I hated it then, and I had Michael build me upset, and I still hate them, and I'm definitely not ever going to do them again. And I'm like,
That's
why?
funny.
Like, just
why do I have the shit?
Throw them out. They're PVC pipes.
I still have F45 like sandbags.
Yeah, see,
that are like up on the top thing up there.
And you're like, why? And you're like, well, I might use it.
Yes. No. Just coming back to that. Do what you enjoy. Like I have one client. She has a nerve problem in her back, so like she'd rather walk on the grass. Great. She just walks in her front yard on the grass. I love it. She's like, here's my picture of my 10,000 steps. I'm like, good job.
Good for you.
All right. So what you've been waiting for, how to actually not regain the weight.
Yes.
So you can probably piece it together at this point, but we're just going to break it down. Nutrition first. First things first. Before we do anything, let's figure out our actual maintenance.
Yes.
So how do we do that? We will use a calculator. Just guesstimate, right? And say it says it's 2,000. You'll eat at 2,000 calories. You're going to track your food. Again, you can track it in MyFitnessPal. You can track it in a food journal. You can, what else?
Hand
in this case, you could do hand portions guide. Tracking it with a food scale in MyFitnessPal is going to give you the most data. Okay. So then say at 2,000, you don't, gain or lose. Maybe we push it up 50 calories. You're like, Christina, why would I push it up? I didn't gain or lose. There's actually a range of maintenance calories. It's not just one thing. It's not one thing.
Yeah.
Because on any given day, your total daily energy expenditure changes.
Right.
I think it's like 30%. I think I read in this article I was reading. So it changes. It fluctuates. So push it up 50 calories. And then if you're like, okay, didn't gain, didn't lose, push up 50 calories more. Didn't gain, didn't lose, 50 calories more. Okay, hold on. It's going up, I don't know, whatever amount.
Yeah.
And again, it needs to be over a period of time. So,
or even if we're not weighing ourselves, I feel a bit fuller than I like with these meals.
These meals. That's a good one too. Yeah, because you're either going to get to the top of your maintenance and you just get there because you're like, okay, I started gaining weight again. And by gaining weight again, in a pattern, not just overnight or during your period, or you're just going to start eating too much. And you're like, I can't fucking eat anymore.
Yeah.
So we want to learn our maintenance. And if you start gaining the weight, guess what you do? You bring it back down 50 calories. We don't bring it down 1,700 calories, just 50. Just 50. What's next, Coach Amanda?
So we found maintenance. Now let's go into a reasonable caloric deficit. So let's take your chick. What did we get to? 2050, 2100, we'll say. So 2100, if I want to lose 1 pound per week, I'm going to subtract 500 per day. So that puts me at 1,600 calories. Here's the question. Can you sustain 1,600 calories per day on average? Right?
On average.
Yes.
Yes. Let me ask, I'm going to add a question to that.
Go.
How to know if I can sustain 1,600 calories? I have sat down and I have planned a whole week's worth of food. That includes foods that I love, a balanced diet, right? And maybe I do that for 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm like, okay, I've got 3 weeks of meals, like 3 weeks, meaning 21 days, that I have maybe 3 to 5 breakfasts, 3 to 5 lunch, 3 to 5 dinner, 3 to 5 snacks. 2 of those snacks being a cookie, maybe one of those meals being some pizza, maybe one of those being a glass of wine. And I've written it out. I've tracked it. I'm like, yep, I can do this. And then I practice it. If you don't have that information, maybe we start there first. Maybe we just start with creating meals that are balanced, learning how to eat the meals that we love, the pizza and such, in a way that serves our body. Maybe we start there. So,
yeah. I agree.
So if it's not sustainable,
if it's 1,600 is not sustainable, then we say, okay, I need to change my expectations for weight loss per week, and I need to find what is sustainable. And both are okay because your outcome will be successful as compared to sucking it up and then going off the rails. So for example, say 1,600 is like, yeah, I can't stay to this, but I can stay at 1,800. Wonderful. Now we're there, but our weight loss is either A, prolonged, or B, the goal of expectational weight loss changes.
Yes.
So go ahead.
And just go back to my little sidebar. And maintenance, you did what I said about the 3 weeks of food.
Yeah.
And go to 1,800 calories. The change is so subtle.
So subtle.
In those meals that you're like, oh, this is like a half teaspoon of oil in my food throughout the day. You're like, oh, okay, I can make that change. So that you do the 1,800 and then you're like, okay, I'm now consistent at 1,800. Let's go 1,650 or 1,700. That's another, little pullback on my, maybe I go to 3.5 ounces of chicken. And
I think you're making a really good point is you don't have to go to that straight 500 caloric deficit, is that you can find what works. And then if you're like, okay, I got it, you can also say, okay, maybe I'll go to the 1,650 like you're talking about. And if you realize like, man, I'm really not staying within this, but I am getting about 1,750, maybe my goal is 1,750 to 1,800 per week on average then.
Love that.
Like you have
never done that with clients. That's a good idea.
I don't know.
Just so smart.
Well, okay, let's say you got your weight loss. Wonderful. But now what we like to do, not everybody does this, is called the reverse diet. And we have an episode on this. And the reverse diet is gradually adding calories back in over time. Not just, so we'll say 1,600. We don't just go back to 2,100. Right. You can.
It's changed.
Well, that's what you can, but it's changed. And also what I tend to find is that once we've got that weight loss and we're where we're at, it's very scary to start adding calories back in. So to go from 16 to 21, not only has it changed and you'd be entering a surplus, but it's very scary to even go from 16 to 18 right away. So I tend to give clients an option at this point. I say, look, we can do 100 calories every week, but we're going to take it slow. I mean, either way, we're taking it slow. And if that sounds okay, then let's just add 17, or let's just go to 1,700 next week. I said, But if you're like, ooh, like 100 calories, which again,
It's a cheese stick.
It's a cheese stick. On the actual food scale of it, it's not that big of a deal, but on your mental side of it, it is a huge deal. Then I go, okay, let's just add 50. And so we'll see how that goes for a couple days, and then we'll add 50 more. So we'll break it up over time. And so that seems to be a little bit more digestible for clients as well.
Yeah. Well, and what this is doing is helping us figure out your new maintenance. So you're not eating in a surplus, right? And again, once we're there, we can go into a building phase, which actually puts you into a controlled surplus.
Yes.
You're not eating like an asshole. And you can slowly bring your metabolism up by gaining more muscle. So how would we do that?
Well,
training.
I want to backtrack too. Sorry. Is because we have been focusing mostly on calories, and I want to give the option of what if we food journal too? So like for some of my clients, they do pictures. And so I know how they feel based on pictures. We're monitoring fullness levels. And so for example, one of my girls, she has like I don't even know what it is. It's a Greek yogurt cottage cheese mixed with a bunch of stuff in it. And so her thing when she goes into a weight loss phase, she would take out the granola that she adds, because granola is actually pretty heavy calorie wise for not a lot of bang for your buck. And so we're talking about the other week of like, okay, but how do we get out of the reverse, or how do we get out of the diet once we're done with it? And I'm like, honestly, what I would just do is just add half of the granola back, and we're going to hang out there. Okay. We feel good. Now maybe we add some cheese back on our salad that we have, and we'll hang out there. So that's another way to do it without calorie counting.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Sorry, I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. In regards to training program, I feel like we've kind of touched on this already. Like finding the training that's sustainable for you. Obviously, strength training is going to help to maintain muscle mass in a deficit, because in any sort of calorie deficit, there is a likelihood we're going to lose some muscle mass. But if we can have a high protein diet that also includes strength training, then we're less likely to do that. And also eating a high protein diet helps to keep you satiated. We've talked about the type of programming you should do. So ensuring that we're focusing on progressive overload. So we're not just working out and grabbing 2-pound dumbbells and pretending like we're strength training. We're focusing on we are focusing on getting stronger, and that requires you to continue to put stress on the muscle, which over time will increase your reps, your sets, the weight on the barbell, dumbbell, and so on. What else?
For my training, myself and for clients, I tend to phase the training schedule with the change in the nutrition plan. Meaning when a training schedule changes, I tend to either go into the cut or start the reverse. And that way it goes along with our pattern, so we can play it out a little bit more. But other than that, for training wise, I think you and I have touched on it enough.
Yeah, touched on enough.
Yeah.
And again, this is the most important part, is just being aware. If you haven't been to our program, you could just be running on autopilot, guys. And like, that is to your demise. That is why you're gaining the weight back. You don't know what to change, or you can't make the change if you don't know what it is you need to change. Whereas our clients will at least have the awareness. It doesn't mean it always happens. I've seen it not happen. I'm not saying we're fucking magic makers, but the more time we spend with a client, the more blind spots we'll see, and the better able we're there to support them. But sometimes people, for whatever reason, leave our programs early. Where they're at, if they leave early, is conscious competence in the learning process, where we want to become unconsciously competent. Conscious competence is I have to actually stop and think and do the new thing. Unconsciously competent is it just naturally happens, right? So being aware of what it looks like when we have a fuck it mentality. Where are you more likely to have that? Write it down. Think about it now. Don't think about it then. Think about it now. When am I more likely to have the fuck it's? When am I most likely to go into all or nothing thinking? When am I more likely to just start talking shit to myself? When am I more likely to not have boundaries with other people and learn skills We teach them here all the time. I'm doing a workshop. You can find them there. You can find them on our social media. You literally can find them anywhere you follow us to manage these things.
Yes. And I think, so we're going into the mindset piece of this too, is we also need to be aware of different aspects of progress that are objective and subjective, right? So subjective may be setting that boundary ahead of time. And then when it comes up, I'm aware of it, I do that. And then I can continue with my diet or the reverse or wherever I'm at and not regaining the weight, or the emotional eating, we'll say more so. Now, once we've gotten back to this place, so say lost the weight, reversed, and now I'm in maintenance again, I'm focusing on not regaining weight, but I still need to use the tools that I've learned, because again, there's not I'm going to manage my emotional stuff as a means to an end, similar to I'm going to lose weight as a means to an end. This is a continual practice that keeps
lifestyle.
Going. Yes.
You're not going to stop eating.
I know.
Or living.
Please don't do either. But also I think at maintenance, it's also just like Jenny told you, it's important to still take pictures, take measurements. If you do the DEXA scans, if you do the body percentage, if you do the scales, like still do those things, because like you experienced, there may be a time where you don't really want to track either journaling or food or calories anymore, but we still need to have a check-in. And it doesn't have to be like every other week. It could be like once a month, and it could be just focusing on what I'm doing. But there still has to be this, I almost want to say like accountability towards oneself, instead of being like, okay, I successfully did the weight loss and I successfully got to maintenance and now I'm here and it's all going to be good. Yeah. Because that's where it starts to creep back in as well.
I've been in this industry since 2010.
Yeah.
Okay. I still don't have the full confidence, because life changes and new triggers change. And having these checks and balances is important for my fucking health.
Yeah.
Not even for the way I look. But I know if my visceral fat around my stomach gets to a certain point, I'm now putting myself in higher risk for all-cause mortality. So don't want to do that. Sorry. Like there's just things that people just assume too. It's just like weight loss, be skinny. No. What you eat and how you move is a part of your health routine, your wellness routine. And just because we lost the weight, got to maintenance, does our health go away? No, this is even more reason. This is a new goal to be like, oh, fuck yeah. I want, like, mine is always like, where's my heart rate at? Like, I want it to be under, like, in the 40s. Like, and I know that's crazy, but I get off on like going to the hospital and the little thing beeping because I have like low heart rate, because I'm like so in shape, and that's not saying I look a certain way. I'm just healthy as fuck, or getting like you did, where you went and got your ultrasound and they were like, or what was it? You got your blood pressure.
Whatever. I got the blood pressure at the ultrasound and they were like, oh, and I was like, is there a problem? They're like, we just don't usually see this. And I was like, fuck yeah, you don't.
Yeah. So like, it doesn't end there. And if you can think about it as that lifelong thing, then you are more likely to maintain it. Right. And so it goes back to like our boom box that we always talk about, is now you have your knobs, where they're at any given time, and we're just kind of adjusting them as we go. And so I definitely think that's a good overview. I think we've followed everything.
We
obviously
went in.
We did it. We sent it. Coaching with the Mindset of Matter is literally going to help you with all of these things. We are going to help you understand your shit, the stuff that happens that's literally causing you to gain the weight, your inability to manage your emotions, your inability to set boundaries, why you reach for food, why you feel like you fail if you have a piece of cake. We literally will help you with all of those things, on top of giving you education and advice on nutrition and such. Why is that important, Amanda?
For what? Giving you education?
Yeah.
So you can do it on your own. Because that's the thing, is like, you don't need a coach forever, but it is really helpful to have the coach. And the coaching can change too. Like, for example, I've had clients who just wanted like training programming, and then they wanted to enter a cut or go into a building phase. And they're like, all right, I need the nutrition aspect of this now, because it's hard to do it on your own. And where as a coach, they can see the bigger puzzle pieces to make the picture for you. Whereas we might just be fixing on the one like piece of this.
Right.
And our job is to pull you out of that and give you a long-term plan that is realistic. Like for example, the client I brought up, where she's like, I didn't even realize like I would have to do that for 60 weeks to lose 60 pounds. Like, if you don't know that, that's pretty important.
Well, then you're gonna get pissed because after a month you didn't lose 20 pounds. Like, well, it was only 4 weeks in a month, baby. Coaching is going to help you to, again, educate like when the scale goes up, when the scale goes down, so that you're not freaking out and giving up. They're going to help you reframe your thinking patterns and your struggles. We'll help you, again, create customizable nutrition and exercise plans that are sustainable for you. And of course, cheer you on, give you, some tough love when necessary, and teach you how to do this so that when you leave us, you have all of the tools you need, and or your life got lifey and you see your blind spots and you say, hey, I need a little refresher, which people have come back for that. And that's okay too.
And that's one thing I want to talk about, the pictures too. I forgot to bring that up, of when life gets lifey, we tend to, from most of our clients, in my experience and your experience, is try and find what we can control. And that tends to be our body and our nutrition and like our body image and exercise. But say life gets lifey and I'm still doing these pictures and I'm in maintenance and I'm thinking like, oh, I've like gained weight. I just know I have because I haven't been tracking whether calories, my food, or the scale. And then you look at the pictures and they look pretty much the same for the last 2 months. Again,
client just did that.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to be like, oh, I'm okay. Like, I'm okay. Or let me do another assessment of maybe I do track calories this week and just see where I'm falling, because the pictures look the same. And if my calories are the same, then I know, oh, this is a great place to be because life got lifey, but yet I'm still doing my bare minimums of what I've said I can do and am able to do.
Love it. Love it. Good. Awesome. Well, if you are interested in coaching with us, please check out the Clarity Call link below. This will set up a conversation with myself and or Amanda, and we will just discuss the next best steps for you in regards to our program and the different types of programs that we offer. You can follow us on social media. The team is at Mindset of Matter Coaching. Amanda is at fitbyamanda.az. You can find these recordings on YouTube at The Mindset of Matter. We haven't had a review, you guys, since June.
Ooh.
Get on it. I'm trying to start making some shirts for this fucking podcast so that we can give them away for you, so that we can get some stuff. But don't wait until then because we need them now. We need reviews, 5-star reviews. And we'd love for you to share this with others, subscribe, all the things, Apple or Spotify. And other than that, if you want to make sure that you recognize one of the most important things that you won't gain the weight back from is learning this one thing.
What you say in the mind,
you see in the mirror. Goodbye.
Bye.